It's Friday evening. It's been a busy week. I've already tried to make this video once, but someone was at the door, so I've got interrupted. But it feels a bit like the whole week's been like that. I don't know about yours. But anyway, it's Friday evening. It's the start of the weekend. And I got some flowers for you, some nice sweet peas. I love sweet peas. They smell amazing, don't they? We have a little tip here. Plant your sweet peas in September, put them in the ground, off they go. And for whatever reason, we find that they flower much better as a consequence of being sown in September rather than the spring. I have no idea what I'm talking about, really. My wife is the person in this house with green fingers, but I tell you, we have an amazing display of sweet peas and have had an amazing display all through the summer. It's been wonderful. I do love them. They smell brilliantly, don't they? Well, there are no sweet peas in the book of James, but James is all about the kind of faith that flowers, that blossoms, that produces fruit, that produces works as evidence of genuine faith. We don't know which was the James who wrote the letter. There are four possibilities. I think most scholars probably agree that it was James, the brother of Jesus, who led the church in Jerusalem. And he's writing to Christians who, in the main, were Jewish background believers who have been scattered because of persecution in Jerusalem. And so he's writing to people that he knows that have been in contact with him through his ministry, leading the church in Jerusalem. And he's writing to encourage them in the midst of all of the practicalities of living a Christian life. And the letter of James is full of practical details about how to handle wealth, how to handle temptation, how to handle persecution and suffering. It's intensely practical and really very pastoral as well. Many people think it's perhaps a collection of sayings or sermons that have been gathered together and then shared round. A bit like how we might communicate thoughts in an email or, share a video of what the pastor's been saying this week kind of stuff. A bit like that kind of a circular bit of information of teaching that's entirely relevant to the practical expression as we work out our discipleship in the ordinary world. There's a big debate about when it was written. Some people say it must be really early because it focuses on works, not faith, and it almost seems to not reference at all Paul's kind of writings around justification by faith. I'm not sure it has to be like that actually, and probably think it comes towards the end of James's life. He was martyred in AD 62, so it's probably from sometime in the 50s. Just because he doesn't mention Paul doesn't mean he's not aware of it. He's dealing with a different situation. What I love about James is it's so practical and it's so deeply aware of some of the stuff that goes on about the motivation and what feeds us. If you've got the wrong kind of wisdom, well, you're likely to come unstuck. The wrong kind of desires, and you're going to kind of grow in all kinds of strange ways and produce all kinds of strange fruit and stuff. It's not that wisdom and desire is unimportant, they're both really important, but they've got to be ordered in the right kind of way. And James is intensely practical, just like how these things are vulnerable to the frost and stuff. He has this wonderful exploration of the power of speech. Churches can be quickly ruined by careless words, whether that's from members of the congregation to one another, or to clergy, or words of the clergy to congregations. It's so easy to undermine the life of a community by poorly chosen words or deliberately used words in ways that are harmful. Bridle your tongue, says James, in an intensely practical and realistic letter. And he uses great visuals. He talks about being thrown around by wild waves, like fires that blaze and burn up stuff. It's wonderfully vivid. And that's why I think it perhaps was a collection of sermons, because the illustrations are so vivid. You can imagine someone preaching them, and the kind of images that go off in people's minds. But the real debate about James is, why does it focus so much on works and not on faith? And people have seen a division between faith and works, which actually is what James is trying to get round. He's trying to say your faith, if it's privatized, is useless. And it can't be real, because any genuine faith will produce fruit. Put these seeds in soil that's good and flowers will grow. And it's the same with faith. Root ourselves in Jesus and things will grow, things will blossom, things will produce fruit. So he's not saying do things in order to prove. No, he's saying if you're rooted in Jesus, you'll naturally produce fruit. You'll do good works. So don't let this become a privatized, individualistic stuff. No, let's pay attention to what we're doing, because genuine faith will always blossom, will always produce things of beauty, things which are good and nourishing, things which bless and sustain other people. Faith without works is therefore dead, because the ground in which we're planted, Jesus Christ, is alive. And so if we're rooted and grounded in him, then we will produce things that are alive. There's lots in this letter that reminds us of the teaching of Jesus, actually. You know, John 15, the vine and the branches, or Jesus about the fig tree which doesn't produce any fruit. There's no division here between James and Paul. No, it's an exploration of what faith worked out in everyday situations and the reality of human experience is all about. So read it and allow James to speak to you. Allow the Spirit of God to speak to you through the words of James. And may you be drawn closer to the one in whom we are planted, the one in whom we are grafted, so that we might abide in Jesus, might have faith through him, and might produce works through that faith. The letter of James, intensely practical, worth reading this weekend.